had a world of my own, everything would be nonsense. Nothing would be what it is, because everything would be what it isn't. And contrary-wise, what it is, it wouldn't be. And what it wouldn't be, it would. You see?
Welcome to Wonderland. Come in, have no fear.
Welcome to Wonderland, where self-discovery takes a curious and whimsical turn. This is Wonderland Unlocked, a journey into the heart of Wonderland itself, exploring the emotions, struggles, and personal growth that shape who we are. I'm Courtney, a peer support specialist with my own winding path through identity, emotions, and transformation. Inspired by my experiences and the lessons I've learned, I created this series to explore how the characters of Wonderland connect to our real-life challenges. In each episode, we'll shine a light on a different Wonderland character, uncovering what their story teaches us about ourselves. From Alice's search for identity to the Mad Hatter's chaos, the Cheshire Cat's wisdom to the Queen of Hearts' fury, we'll explore what their journeys reveal about our own. So take a step down the rabbit hole, embrace the unexpected, and let's unlock Wonderland within.
Alice, sweetheart, it's time for tea. Alice? Alice?
In today's episode, we're going to explore something that I know a lot of us struggle with: time anxiety. If you've ever felt like you're running behind, never catch up, or constantly chasing after something, then you're probably felt the weight of time pressure. Whether it's trying to be productive, meet expectations, or simply manage the demands of life, it's easy to fall into the trap of feeling like you're always late, just like the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. We'll explore how time anxiety plays a role in our lives and how, more importantly, how we can approach it using core dialectical behavioral therapy DBT skills like radical acceptance, distress tolerance, and mindfulness. Let's start by introducing the infamous White Rabbit. In Alice in Wonderland, the White Rabbit is always running around frantically, worried about being late, and he's constantly muttering,
Yes, I feel like whiskies. I'm late. I'm late for a very important date. No time to say hello, goodbye. I'm late. No. I'm overdue. I'm really in a stew. No time to say goodbye. Hello, I'm late.
He doesn't stop, he doesn't breathe, and he certainly doesn't seem to take any time for himself. Sound familiar? For so many of us, this feeling of being late can become a constant state of mind. We rush from one task to the next, checking off to-do lists, meeting deadlines, and worrying about time running out. But in this rush, we often forget to pause and breathe, to notice what we're really doing, and to check in with ourselves. I know this pressure well. In my own life, I spent so much time feeling like I was running behind, whether it was from shifting careers, managing personal changes, or even trying to stay on top of daily tasks. The feeling of always being behind was suffocating. It wasn't until I started to really understand the roots of my anxiety around time that I realized how much it was affecting my mental health. But here's the thing. Time anxiety is not just about being late. It's about the pressure to always be productive, efficient, and perfect. In the world we live in, there's this constant push to do more, be more, and somehow get everything done perfectly. This is where radical acceptance comes in. We can start acknowledging that there will always be moments where we feel like we're behind. It's not all about stopping time. It's about accepting the moments we're in. Radical acceptance means embracing where you are, even if it's not where you want to be. So, let's start with a small exercise to begin accepting where you are right here and now. Think about a time where you felt like you were running late. Close your eyes if you can, and bring yourself back to that moment. What was going through your mind? How did it make you feel in your body? What thoughts were running through your head? Now, say to yourself, this is where I am, and that's okay. Take a moment to accept that you're doing the best that you can, and no matter where you are in this moment, you are enough. The next part of our exploration today is understanding the pressure to be productive and how that connects to time anxiety. In our modern world, productivity has almost become a measure of self-worth. The more you do, the more valuable you are. We're conditioned to think that being busy means we're succeeding. If we're not busy, we're failing. But here's the thing, productivity doesn't define us, and constantly striving for perfection, that can lead to burnout. In my past career, I was driven by productivity. Every task, every goal, every responsibility had to be checked off perfectly. The thought of falling behind paralyzed me. I didn't realize at the time that I was setting myself for failure by expecting perfection. Let's look at the core principle of distress tolerance. This is about withstanding difficult emotions without letting them overwhelm you. For many of us, the distress we feel when we're behind or not being productive enough can lead to overwhelming anxiety. But when we practice distress tolerance, we learn to accept those feelings without letting them dictate our actions. Think about this. When you feel that pressure to be more productive, what happens in your body? Does your heart rate increase? Does your breathing become shallow? Do you start thinking, I'll never get anything done? Now, let's practice a distress tolerance skill to help manage that pressure. In DBT, one tool for distress tolerance is called the STOP skill. It's an acronym that stands for S, stop what you're doing. T, take a breath. O, observe what's going on in your mind and body. P, proceed mindfully. Take the time to take the next step with intention. Now, take a moment now and apply this skill. Stop what you're doing. Take a breath. Observe where you're feeling tension in your body. Maybe in your shoulders, your neck, your hands, your legs, your back. And proceed with the next step, whether that's taking a break or reassessing what truly needs your focus. Okay, so let's dive into mindfulness and its connection to time management. When we're constantly in a state of anxiety, we miss out on the present moment. We're either worried about what's coming up or lamenting the past, but mindfulness allows us to be present in whatever moment we're in, and that's especially important when it comes to managing time. One of the best pieces of advice I've learned is when you're focused on something, be fully present. It sounds simple, but so many of us rush through tasks, not really noticing what we're doing. We're so concerned about the outcome that we miss the beauty of the process itself. Mindfulness helps us to acknowledge the current moment without judgment. If you're feeling behind or overwhelmed, mindfulness doesn't try to change it, it simply asks you to be with it, to notice it, and to accept it without resistance. I used to stress about how much I was accomplishing during the day. If I wasn't able to check off every task, I would feel like I'd failed. But when I started practicing mindfulness, I began to shift my focus. I stopped stressing about the end goal and focused on enjoying the process. I noticed the small things that made me happy, like enjoying a cup of coffee or a quiet moment of reflection. Try this with me for a moment. If you're feeling rushed or overwhelmed, pause and bring your awareness to your breathing. Take a deep breath in and out. Now, as you exhale, bring your attention to the present moment. What can you notice around you right now? The sound of my voice, the temperature in the air, the feeling in your body sitting in this space. Simply observe. No need to change anything. Let's take a more practical approach now. One of the ways I found to manage time anxiety is through time blocking. It's a technique where you set specific periods during the day for certain tasks, and you commit to focusing on just one thing during that time. For example, I schedule a block of time for focused work, another for self-care, and another for family time. When I block out my day in this way, I can see exactly where my time is going. And here's the key. I don't stress about what's next. When I'm in a block, I'm focused on that block only. But time blocking isn't just about being productive. It's also about being kind to yourself. When you've scheduled time for rest, you honor that rest. When you schedule a break, you take that break without guilt. Self-kindness means giving yourself permission to slow down, even when it feels like there's a million things to do. Here's a practical exercise for you. Take out your phone or open your planner and block out your time for tomorrow. Start with your priorities. But don't forget to schedule in time for rest. Remember, time anxiety isn't just about deadlines. It's about being kind enough to yourself to allow time for balance. In today's world, we're constantly bombarded by distractions, and that makes time anxiety even worse. The ping of notifications, the endless scroll through social media, and the pressure to respond to messages immediately. It can feel like there's no escape from the constant demand for our attention. This digital age has intensified our sense of time being stolen because we're never fully engaged with the present moment. I remember a time when I would be working, but also checking my phone every few minutes to see if an email had come in or if a friend had texted. Even while working on something important, I couldn't resist the urge to check. What I didn't realize was that this multitasking was actually making me less productive and more anxious. The practice of mindfulness can help us detach from the pressure of constant connectivity. It's about reclaiming our focus and saying, it's okay to step away from the screen for a moment. I can check back later. When we're constantly checking our phones or refreshing our emails, we're not in the precious present moment. We're not engaged in what's in front of us. We're running from one thing to the next, and in doing so, we create more pressure and anxiety. I want to share a mindfulness practice for managing distractions of the digital world. The next time you find yourself reaching for your phone, stop for a moment. Breathe deeply and observe your body's response. Then make a conscious choice. Will you engage with the distraction? Or will you return to the task at hand? This simple act of awareness gives you back some control over your time. Another major contributor to time anxiety is the pressure of perfectionism. Many of us feel like the things that we need to do perfectly in order to become successful or worthy. Whether it's at work, in our relationships, or how we manage our daily lives, the desire for perfection can create intense anxiety and self-doubt. This pressure to do things perfectly often leads to procrastination because we feel like we can't move forward until everything is just right. We might delay starting a project because we worry it won't be perfect, or we might get stuck in small details that don't really matter, wasting time and energy. I personally struggle with perfectionism, especially when I was in roles that demanded a high level of precision and attention to detail. The anxiety around meeting those expectations often led me paralyzed, unable to move forward because I feared failure. What I learned is that perfection isn't goal, progress is. Radical acceptance can help us let go of perfectionism. When we accept that we can't control everything and that mistakes are part of life, we can start to feel free of fear. We give ourselves permission to be imperfect. Let's pause and reflect. What is something you're currently stressing over because it isn't perfect? Is there a task you've put off because it has to be just right? Are you focusing on details that are not the big picture? Now let's remind ourselves, progress is the goal, not perfection. And taking one imperfect step forward, we move closer to our goals. Let's talk about the feeling of always needing to be busy. Some people wear busyness like a badge of honor. That's kind of like me. And it becomes part of our identity. It can feel uncomfortable to have free time or to sit still because we fear that in that silence we might confront uncomfortable emotions or questions about our purpose. In my life, there's been times where I filled every minute of my day with work or social activities, avoiding moments of stillness because I didn't want to feel the weight of being alone with my thoughts. But the truth is, by staying constantly busy, I was avoiding the deeper work I needed to do, whether it was healing from the past trauma or exploring my personal goals. Mindfulness can be incredibly useful here. When we allow ourselves to sit with stillness, we can begin to explore the spaces within ourselves that we often avoid. In fact, the practice of mindfulness asks us to be present in our own company without distraction. It allows us to listen to our inner thoughts and feelings without judgment. Let's practice together. Close your eyes for a moment. Let yourself sit still and notice the sensations in your body. Are you fidgeting? Are there thoughts rushing through your mind about everything you should be doing? What do you notice in the stillness? There is peace in that stillness, and it's through mindfulness that we can allow ourselves to reconnect with it. Now let's discuss something that's often been difficult for people who struggle with time anxiety: setting boundaries. Boundaries are crucial in managing time, yet many of us feel guilty about saying no. We want to help, please others, and be available all the time. But in doing so, we stretch ourselves too thin and become overwhelmed. I've learned that it's okay to say no. It's okay to set limits on how much time we give ourselves and others. In fact, setting boundaries is a form of self-care. It's essential for managing anxiety around time. When we honor our own boundaries, we protect our energy, focus, and well-being. Here's an exercise to try when you're feeling overwhelmed with time demands. Think of a situation where you've said yes to something when you really didn't have the energy or time. Now, imagine how it would have felt to say no. What would you need to say in order to set a clear, respectful boundary? Take a moment now to consider any boundaries you might need to set in your life. It could be saying no to an extra work, limiting social media use, or taking time for self-care. Boundaries are about protecting your time and energy. The final piece of the puzzle in dealing with time anxiety is learning to let go of control. I hate to say this, but we can't control every aspect of our lives, and sometimes that's the hardest lesson to learn. In the past, I tried to micromanage every aspect of my life, thinking that if I could control everything, I would prevent mistakes and avoid stress. But that only led to more anxiety, because the truth is, we can't control time, other people, or even our emotions all the time. When I started to embrace imperfection, I realized that I was able to enjoy life more. Things that didn't always go according to plan, but I was learning to go with the flow. Radical acceptance comes back into play here. By accepting that not everything will be perfect and that some things will be out of control, we can reduce our anxiety. In fact, mindfulness can help with this too. When we practice being present in each moment instead of worrying about the future, we start to feel less pressure. Let's take a moment to practice letting go of control. Think of one area in your life where you're trying to control everything. Can you step back and accept that it's okay to not have control over it? Can you surrender that responsibility to the universe and trust that things will unfold as they're meant to? Take a deep breath and let it go. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts. Time anxiety is something many of us deal with, but it doesn't have to control our lives. By practicing radical acceptance, distress tolerance, and mindfulness, we can start to break free from the pressure of always being on time and productive. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have everything figured out right now. You are enough just as you are, and you deserve to give yourself the gift of grace and self-compassion. I encourage you to take everything you've learned today and start applying it to your life. Practice saying no when you need to. Set boundaries. Embrace the present moment. And above all, remember that you are doing the best that you can. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. I hope you found some insight, peace, and inspiration in these words. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, in Wonderland, things may not always make sense, but that's a part of the adventure. Yay me, yay you, and yay us.